we are not recognizing that the reason why accumulation of knowledge does not take place is because we don't have common vocabulary. But going back to the variability, we were looking at the variability, that one of the reasons why tools have to be developed was to reduce variability. Now, what are the different ways in which we can reduce variability? What is tool? What else?
Printing press, newspapers.
Variability. Variability.
Well, exactly. But I mean, Benedict Anderson argues in his essay "Imagines Communities" that the reason that nations could even develop is that they reduce the variability of language by using a common language, eliminating the vernacular.
Okay. So one way in which variability in expression of language, not construction of language, but expression of language. Express, okay, what else? But that is much later. I mean, it's very recent development. Extend your span to tens of thousands of years. We are coming too close now.
Feelings. What they are feeling for that.
How did the variability, what are the ways in which variability?
Expression will come whenever they will feel something different. They will have different expressions for that.
What do you say?
Selective perception. The way to probably reduce the variability is not to perceive a phenomena and perceive a single or multiple phenomena barring the other.
Very interesting. We sometimes behave like an ostrich.
Yeah, so that is what I think.
Very true. Ostrich puts his hand in sand and then believes that all the problems have gone away. So we can, yes, it is true, selective perception could be one way in which we reduce variability. We don't reduce variability, we see less of it.
They just ignore it.
So we are not reducing it, we are only seeing less of it. But that is one way to reduce variability. When horse uses blinkers, you are managing the variability of the sight. He should not be seeing everything on the road, only the front portion, so that the horse doesn't get distracted. So basically what you're saying is blinkers, isn't it? Some kind of blinkers. What else we do to reduce the variability or to manage it? How can we? Any other way you can say that? You find the limits within which what is called as resilience, or in navigation, in shipping, we call it plimsoll line. The plimsoll line is the one within which the ship can move like this and will remain afloat. If it goes like this, it will sink. Up to here or here, it will swim. So what you can do is you may not reduce variability, but you can know the limits within which system can work. It's also called resilience. There's another word for it. In biology we call it homeostasis. We will discuss it tomorrow. Homeostasis. So and there are two kinds of homeostasis, developmental and physiological. So physiological homeostasis is when you run and you perspire. The perspiration is a response at that moment. When we grow old, we lose hair, we lose our teeth. That is developmental. Trees shed leaves during winter. That is developmental. Whereas physiological is at any point of time. Our heartbeat goes up, is a physiological response when we are climbing the stairs. So some societies develop institutions which by definition reduce the perception of variability. Some do not do that. So the kinship relationship, the marriage norms are ways of reducing variability. when you have marriages within first cousin, as in South India, among many, my secretary married his sister's daughter, which is considered very auspicious in their culture. In Andhra Pradesh also that happens. In Kerala, Tamil Nadu it happens. Among Tamil Nadu it happens. And among Muslims also it happens. Now, that is a very auspicious, very revered way of marriage. Looks strange to another culture, but what is it leading to? It is leading to reduction in the variability. Unlike the North Indian system, where even the gotras, 5 gotras are matched, you are maximizing the variability. You are trying to generate heterosis in genetic terms. But in South India, at least in Tamil Nadu, you are trying to reduce the variability. So there are different institutional mechanisms, even in the biological level, at the level of reproduction, where you are trying to reduce the variability. It's very important, because when we see how tolerant a society is to creativity or innovation, we will see the connection between this at some stage. Because the more variability you allow, greater is your willingness to tolerate deviance. Less variability you allow, the less creativity or innovation. So we will come there. I mean, I'm just flagging this issue so that we can come back to this issue later on. Today we will not discuss that. Today we are only trying to focus on building blocks. So what else can we do to variability, reduce variability? One of the most important things, what do we do? Not alphabet, but words. In other words, one of the ways in which we reduce variability is by classification. Correct? So when I say hot and cold, the child learns slowly, this is hot, this is cold. You tell him, he would not accept it. He has to experience it. You try to tell him, no, it's hot, don't touch it, but they will touch it. The more you say no, the more child would like to touch. Because his word at that moment is experiential. But he is making concepts in his mind. He is understanding cold, hot, far, near. So when he starts walking, you try to tell him, no, you can go that far, but he knows that he cannot. So he will fall down after a while. But he is learning. What is his limit? So the concept of near and far, concept of cold and hot, concept of sweet and sour. So one of the things, very important thing, there are a whole range of books just on this concept of classification, taxonomy. Taxonomy is one way in which variability is dealt with. Very important, very important, very important. And we should understand taxonomy as a tool for making sense of the world. So those who acquire a lot of knowledge in any discipline have the ability to classify much more sharply. So one skill that we need to acquire, or at least appreciate in the culture that are able to deal with variability, is the skill of classification. Whole range of multi-layer classification. We will come to that later. What else can we do to reduce variability? And remember that, we will come back to that, classification means also words. Each concept is a word. So we will see how Eskimos have much larger number of conceptual categories for snow, just as some coastal communities have much larger number of conceptual categories for waves of the sea, and some farming communities have much larger number of words for soil. On whichever resource you depend for your survival, you tend to classify the variability in that resource into large number of discrete categories. That's the general principle.
According to they don't care to naming those plants because for them it is not of their interest. So I think this is also the part.
No, but when it comes to classification, like Kand, Mool, Creeper, annuals, perennials, that is one level of classification. Very simple.
Even that also, they also classify that also. So if they are not using, they use as a bun.
They have there is a black box. They create a black box.
So this one.
They create a black box.
But it is just like
Whenever we don't find anything,
They are just
misclassified. We put it in miscellaneous. So that is it.
But that's the whole point, that different cultures, different communities of practitioners, the degree to which they become expert or sophisticated or advanced, so to say, advanced in the sense how sharp their tools are. What was in the Industrial Revolution, we call them guilds. The guilds, those guilds which develop better tools of classification, became more competitive. Okay, so the advantage of classification is not only to make sense of what is happening. So the moment you have a word, you can now place it somewhere, that phenomena. But you can also at the same time look at its frequency, order, sequence, whole range. You can, any concept which once is classified, is defined, you can now deal with some 5 or 7 to 10 different parameters of that concept. So therefore it becomes amenable to analysis. In other words, pattern recognition becomes easier if you have good classification. You cannot, one of the ways in which variance is reduced is pattern recognition, which follows from here. Although pattern recognition can also, there is a language of patterns, isn't it? So when you have cumulus clouds like cotton, scattered cotton. Now there is a person, a lady, and she was doing research in Ahmedabad many years ago. She went to one of the tribe and showed them the meteorological organization's photographs of clouds, and that for which there were technical English terms, and asked the tribals to identify those clouds. And she found that there were variations within the cloud form on the basis of colors. So cumulus, while that was based on scattering, but a scattering of clouds could be in different kinds of skies. So they had a layer of color which was the refractivity of and the nature of the dust which goes into the sky and then causes reflection through which the colors get formed. So they had 2 layered classification. This tribe on the Rajasthan Gujarat border had 2 layers classification of clouds, whereas the meteorologists have only 1 layer. They don't link the nature of shape of cloud with the condition of sky. Similarly, Eskimos, they have, the nature of snow is a 2-layered process. There is a surface and there is a below surface, there could be water, or there could be moving water, there could be still water. So they will have 2-layered a scheme of a matrix from which the words evolve. Whereas for us it is all snow. For us it is all same. For English language, knowing people, you have high tide, low tide. But a fisherman in Jamnagar or somewhere, Porbandar, if he has to go and come back safe, and he has to come back safe with 99.9% probability, he better understands not just the waves, he understands the shape of the wave, or the frequency, the turbidity, the temperature, how clean the water is, how, in other words, turbidity, then how much light is penetrating, how turbulent it is, and what frequency the waves are coming, and which kind of waves, how high the waves are. So they have a much more complex classification of waves than